Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uplift at Home. My name is Katherine, and you are with us for our second video training series in our 6-session series for helpers. And so maybe you are a helping professional, maybe you are a healthcare worker, maybe you're a caregiver. All of those are really, really challenging jobs, and they're really even more necessary than they've ever been before. So thank you for all that you're doing. We have a first video that's also up. That topic is, of course, we're struggling. None of this is normal. So if you haven't watched that yet, I encourage you to head over to there. Our session topic for today is taking care of ourselves when the rest of the world expects us to take care of them, which I know resonates with me, and I'm guessing many of you as well. So again, my name is Katherine. My pronouns are she and her. I am the training coordinator for Uplift Center for Grieving Children. And I am joined by two of my amazing colleagues today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm the Director of School and Community Services here at Uplift. My pronouns are also she and her.
Hello, I am Lamya Broussard, and I am the School and Community Services Clinician, and my pronouns are also she, her, and hers.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Lamya. So I'm going to hand it over to Lamya in just a minute, but one of the first things I wanted to say is that we really believe at Uplift that all of what we're going through right now is grief. We are grieving people who have died. Maybe they died a while back, or maybe they're dying right now during the pandemic, maybe from coronavirus, or maybe from other illnesses or accidents that are still happening. And we're all grieving losses that are large and valid and very real for us as we are shifting to a completely different way of life. And so all of that makes taking care of ourselves even more necessary. So I'm guessing you are watching this because you are in charge of other human beings, whether they're professionally, whether they're in your home or in your community, in your family. It's a lot of work to be putting other people before ourselves right now. And when we talk about self-care, I think that there's a notion that that's selfish, that's indulgent. And we really believe that it's actually a requirement. If we're going to keep giving at the high level we're giving, and if we're going to be supporting in a way that really is empowering, and Lamya is going to talk a lot more about that in a minute, then we absolutely owe it to those people and to ourselves to make ourselves a priority. So I'm going to hand it to Lamya, and she's going to sort of set the stage for us about how we can think through this as either professionals or as caregivers, helpers in whatever way you identify as one.
Thank you, Katherine. Yeah, I know for me, like self-care is definitely one of those things that have evolved majorly, and I'll speak a little bit more on that. And I'm sure for many others here, you know, it is an evolution, so it doesn't matter where you are in the process of your self-care, whether it's you're at a place where you're just realizing you need self-care, or you've been doing this for a long time and need to enhance it or adjust it. The fact that you're on this call tells us all that you're in the right place. So just some of the things that I would say really guides me as a profession that also rolled over into my personal life with self-care is I think of our preamble, so our mission as for social workers, and two of the values and principles that really, like I said, guides me. But whether you're in social services, social work, or a therapist or a psychologist, you know, I know that these are also some of the same values in those disciplines. So the first one is competence. We all know when it comes to being in the field or serving or working for, you know, taking care of people, we have to be competent. So we know competent, when we say competent, it basically means to know. So our families that we work with, or youth that we work with, or students we work with at Uplift, they have to know that we actually know what it is in our discipline. We know about grief, we know what we should be doing. And that is no different when it comes to personally. I have to understand that I have to know myself. I have to be real with myself, know where I am. I have to know what my triggers are. I have to know where I've healed from. I have to know where I still am healing to make sure that that competency also rolls over into me as a person and me being able to take care of myself. The other value that really stands out as well is integrity. So when we say integrity, we think of what? trustworthy, right? So for someone to have integrity, it's basically saying that what you are saying to me, what you are helping me with, I can trust that it actually is coming from a place that is correct. I can trust what it is that you're sharing. And so personally, my mind, body, and spirit have to be able to trust that I am going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm okay and I'm caring for myself before I can care for others. So that's where that trustworthy or that integrity piece comes in. And then also as a social worker, our whole mission is to empower. And so empowering basically means to help someone like cultivate power and authority over their life. So when we're working with our families, where we're working with our personal families, whether we're working with, especially, those that we're serving in the healthcare field or in the social services field, or human service field, we have to make sure that we are doing it from a place where we are helping to cultivate them to be able to have power and authority over their life. And what that really helped me is it helped me to look at, am I actually empowering this family that I'm working with, or am I actually hindering them by doing everything for them? And that has really helped guide me in how I'm taking care of myself. Because yes, we know that we all do work with families that may come to us like as a profession, and it may be at a different level. We have to meet them where they are. So initially that may look like us actually making that phone call if we're referring them to a therapist, dialing the number, helping them to schedule an intake. However, after that, though, we need to get to a point, the whole purpose is to help our families know how to do those things for themselves. So that's an example of what empowerment looked like. And that's something that I know has helped guide me to know, okay, am I empowering? Am I actually being competent to myself as well as the discipline that I'm working in? Am I also upholding integrity to make sure that I am at a place where I'm okay or I'm well to be able to work with others? And as I mentioned, that has not always been the case for me. And I can go into, some examples of where I've come to now, if you want me to, Katherine, or I can hold it for a little later. But that has definitely not always been the case for me. I have come from a place where I had very, very, very poor life-work balance. I used to go into work early, stay late daily, and I was always behind. I never could get through what I needed to get through. And then I had to realize, in the social services field, realistically, it's kind of set up, unfortunately, where you won't ever necessarily be ahead in some roles because the demand is so high. And so I was struggling with that. I used to eat at my desk. I used to not only really eat once a day. It really got bad when I was driving home one time, and I really don't know how I got home. I remember just kind of spacing out a little bit. The stress was so high. I've almost gotten in an accident a couple times in the past. And then when it got really, really at its worst was when I literally could not get out of the bed one day, a morning, and I went to the emergency room, and it was nothing that was prognosis-wise the matter. It was nothing health-wise besides I had neglected my vitals and vitamin levels. And so I had to take off a whole week. And I realized there, okay, as much as I thought that I had to do everything and keep running myself down to the ground, I realized that when I had to take a week off, if something happens to me, everything that I've been working towards is not going to really matter. And it was also, I would come home, sleep at the computer. I would, start at the computer, fall asleep at the computer, trying to constantly catch up. And so that was where I was. And then I had to really learn. And my mom said something that may sound very simple, but it was monumental for me at one point. She was visiting, and I didn't realize I was even not able to engage with my mom, who lives out of state. And she told me, just leave it. What you don't finish, you can finish the next day. And I said, what do you mean? Just leave it? She said, just leave it. Whatever you don't finish, it will always be there. Prioritize what you need, but it will always be there. And then also a really good friend of mine helped me incorporate, make sure that you put in lunch time every day a same set time to help you and help others around you know to create a boundary. And that's something that I've been able to carry through as well. But I needed some kind of structure to help guide me. And so personally, that helped me to also take care of myself by taking vitamins and doing those different things. So I know I said a whole lot, but those are the things I would say that has guided me.
Lamya, thank you so much for sharing that. If you know Lamya, or if you ever work with Lamya, you know that all of this is actually very new information, right? Like, she, from what we see, is very boundaried with her time and really models for a lot of us what a boundary means in terms of taking time for you, because that does benefit your work. And so when I learned about the journey you've been on, Lamya, it was really humbling for me to hear that you have been so intentional. Like, you didn't just arrive there, but it is a true journey. And so I would love to hear both of your thoughts a little bit on, when we think of what like popular culture says about self-care, or we think about what social media says about self-care, what's out there and why is that false? Why is that incorrect?
Yeah, I mean, I think that self-care is a term that's tossed around a lot, especially in our field. And I know for me, it often makes me kind of cringe a little bit because I don't like how it's kind of thought of that you have to spend a lot of money and be, over the top, and it's like a treat. It's like a once in a while, I'm going to get a massage once a month, or I'm going to get my nails done. And all those things are great. Like, I love a massage and a pedicure for sure. But if that's my self-care, all in all, that's really not self-care. That's like treating yourself, which is also important. But self-care, like Lamya said, is really intentional. It's a daily routine. It's something you do every single day. And sometimes it's really basic stuff. Like Lamya mentioned lunch. That's something I do every day when we were working in the office, was leaving my desk and having lunch. That was kind of a boundary I set, where that's taking my time and a break to go eat, away from my desk, away from all the emails and all the noise, to go have some time for myself. Working at home now, we have to shift and pivot a little bit. So lunch, I have a lot of kids here and animals, and people are all over the place. So I don't have the relaxing lunch. I'm now like making lunch for a lot of people. But it's still, I'm leaving the work area, which is now my dining room, and going to a different room and trying to eat healthy meals and things that are going to fill me up, making sure that I'm exercising. And even that looks different now, right? Because all of our gyms are closed. So kind of now working at home and with everything going on with COVID-19, really our self-care before is even changing now. But I think self-care is regular, it's daily. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's really things that are fulfilling us, filling us up, and also allowing us to let go of some of the, trauma and stress and grief that we're all taking in, whether it's in our work or now with kind of general life, or both.
Meghan? I think for me too, I thought there was a long period of time where I watched other people do what I assumed was like the universal approach to self-care. And I remember it was embarrassingly recent where I was like, you know what? We're different people. And so different things are going to work for us because we're different. And so in the last several years, I feel like I've been able to be a lot more vocal about the fact that I'm an introvert. And so I actually need quiet time at the end of the day, being surrounded by people. And I think lots of people are really surprised to hear that I'm an introvert, because I think we have a lot of false narratives about like, oh, introverts are people who are quiet and they're lonely, or, they're recluses, where I feel like I'm always around people. But it just means that I recharge by myself. Whereas I have a lot of very close friends who recharge by being with loved ones. And while I love being with loved ones, it's something that I need to replenish after or before from. And so sometimes what even your best friend or your closest person is doing is not going to work for you. And that's okay. Like, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. And that took me a long time to understand that it's going to be different and unique for each one of us.
And I think also going along with that, Katherine, is making sure that our self-care plans are always evolving and changing with with life, with circumstances, just with us and maturing and being at different phases in our life or different positions. It's always got to be, reviewed and checked and added, or, something taken away that isn't working, right? So we always have to be checking in with ourselves. Is our self-care really working for us anymore? And sometimes it's not, for whatever reason. And we have to be able to, recognize that and change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lamya, the other day you were talking about how there was a point in time where you felt like self-care was activity-based. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as Meghan was kind of mentioning, and I give credit, for organizations, even in the past, for them at least even trying to start somewhere. But I too thought self-care was activity-based. I thought it was, you go out, you can leave work early, an hour and a half early, and you may go to the gym, or you go to get your hair done, or go to get your nails done, for people who like those kind of things. And, it really has helped shift me in the recent, I would say, even year, and really a lot of the focus that our organization has put on self-care, and even hearing a colleague mention that self-care is evolving, as it says, and it sometimes is minute by minute, is day by day, and I think it actually depends on where we are in life. Some things that I used to do for self-care years ago that worked, actually, it was kind of more triggering for me to do. It didn't really help me, because at the place that I was, dealing with a lot of, the type of work that I do now is not the same that I did in the past. And so I think maybe the more intense you are caring for someone, or the work that you're doing is just naturally more stressful. Some things that maybe in the past you probably after work could watch, a very intense movie as a way to relax. But then if you're working in a field and you're around a lot of trauma or grief or things like that, going home and watching a show that maybe used to be a favorite show before is not really maybe the best thing to watch. So I used to think it was activity-based, meaning that, and I've learned that it's not. It actually is really a daily, a life. Basically, I think it's a lifestyle that you are incorporating into your life to make sure that, I am going to be intentional to do whatever I know I need to be well, wherever I am, whatever work that I'm doing, if that's for a period of time, for 3 months or 2 months or a day, but taking it a day by day.
I love that you said it's a lifestyle, Lamya, because I really think that's a great way to put it, that it's just incorporated into our life. It's part of who we are, what we do, and it just is. It's nothing fancy. It's not out of the ordinary. It's how we live, is taking care of ourselves. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is such a great framework to think about it. I think I used to think I have all these different pieces of things on my plate, and self-care, when it was presented to me the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, it's just another thing. I don't have room on my plate. There's no room for that. And now I feel like through the support of lots of people in my life, I'm really learning to view it as, it's not a thing on your plate. It's how do you approach the plate? It's how do you balance the things on the plate so that you can keep supporting and giving and helping for a long period of time at the level you require of yourself. So for those of us who have high standards about no, I'm not just going to call a grieving person in my life, once a year. I'm going to make an effort to really be there for them when everybody else deserves them. And you also need to be there for yourself when everybody else deserves you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I would love to hear a little bit from each of you about, this pandemic. None of us were born into a pandemic. There are certainly people being born right now, but the three of us have been around the block for at least a couple of decades. And I would love to hear a little bit about how did you conceptualize self-care for yourself before the pandemic? And I know each of us have really different life circumstances that sort of define what's accessible in our context, right? And so we can only do what works for us. And so how did you conceptualize it? How did you think about it? What did it look like before the pandemic? And how are you, I'm not going to say how have you shifted, how are you currently shifting that to work for yourself now?
Great question. Do you want to go, Lamya, or would you like me to start?
You can go.
Okay. So I think a lot of my self-care before because I have 3 kids at home and I work, and I support a lot of people at work. So a lot of my self-care was kind of based on taking breaks from supporting people, whether it was going to the gym, having quiet time where I'm reading, or doing something that's kind of just me away from the noise. That was kind of how I would conceptualize it. And that was really helpful, going out and like leaving kind of the work office, the home, was also helpful to just kind of do things that I enjoyed, that fulfilled me. Not that work and home doesn't, but my self-care was really focused kind of away from those 2 entities, because that's where I would kind of recharge. Now, stuck at home in the pandemic, where I'm working at home, and where I'm also schooling my children at home, trying to keep order in the home, trying to keep everybody, calm and reassured, and just always helping people from the moment I get up till the time I go to bed, and not having that quiet time is really challenging. So I think it's shifted a lot. I don't have the gym anymore, but I work out every morning, like via Zoom with the gym people. So we see each other virtually, but that's really, I had to set something up in my basement. It's nothing fancy. I don't have like, gym equipment, but I have a mat and some little weights, and that's all I need. And that's my kind of quiet time. There's some free yoga on the internet that I love. That's very helpful as well, just to like decompress. My daughter will do yoga with me. So even though it's not my total alone time, it's still relaxing. I try to have like structure in the day, just like I did, before, not like too much. Cause I think it's really important to understand that we're all living in this pandemic, and there's so much anxiety and stress anyway from everybody. So to kind of shift the expectations of what life is, and we don't have to be perfect all the time and run, because there's honestly nowhere to run to right now. So really like taking a step back, and having structure where we kind of have like a breakfast window, because I have to work from this time to this time, and then there's a lunch window. And then there's, breaks in the day, and we take walks, and kind of having a general rhythm of our day, I think in general makes me feel better. I think rituals and routine are very comforting for adults and kids. So I think that's just really helpful right now. And it took a while to kind of get in that rhythm, but I think finding your rhythm of your home is really important. And even setting kind of areas for different activities is really helpful. So this is my dining room. This is my like work area. I don't do anything else here right now. So this is where everyone knows there's no doors. So people are running through all the time and climbing on me, but that just happens, and that's okay. So I have to shift expectations that I will have complete privacy to focus. It's okay. That's what it is. So part of it has been a journey of kind of letting go of, what the expectations were before of how life is and how productive I'm going to be. Because honestly, like shifting the priorities right now, being super, productive and, cleaning the house and organizing the closets and all the run that I was used to just isn't the focus anymore. So it's been as hard as it is for a lot of us, with finances and work and being out of work and just uncertainty and all of that is really hard. It's also a time when we can kind of like slow down a little bit. And I think that's been a gift. And I've really been trying really intentionally to look at good things that are going on in the world and my world, in the world in general. Gratitude has been really important. It sounds kind of hokey, like look for the silver lining and all that stuff. But I think right now, because there is so much darkness out there, that like finding things that are maybe just not awful is really good. And sometimes that's like all you can get to for the day is like, hey, this wasn't so terrible. Maybe nothing's great, but things like this one thing wasn't awful for today. And that's all you got, So I think just really shifting what we expect of ourselves and others in life is really important. Like setting up a routine and structure as much as you can that works kind of for you, and giving yourself and others a lot of grace right now is, I think, really important for me as well, because we aren't perfect, and this is an imperfect situation, so we do the best we can do.
Thanks, Meghan. What I will add that Meghan did not say is that she's not just supporting schools and the kids that we work with, but she's also supporting a team of 7 people that she supervises weekly. passes that message along really intentionally. And so we're going to have another video in this series all about what clinical supervision looks like during now, like how do we incorporate that grief and that of what we're losing right now in this pandemic at the same time of embracing grace and, you know, really shifting our expectations and letting go of what used to be normal. So thanks.
Yeah, and I would say for me, it was really still continued, but definitely adjusted. So for the first thing, you know, I had to, once, you know, we started realizing, okay, this is getting more and more serious and could not go anywhere. I had to realize, you know, I am extrovert. You know, that is my personality. I am high extroverted. However, I have also, though, which happens when you get older and you're an extrovert, you do tend to be more reflective. And because I am single, I know what it is like to, you know, live, you know, by myself and have that time and reflective time. So I had to know, okay, I know my personality. I know what I need, as you said, to draw on strength. And so I had to really look within, okay, so I had to look at what I do have around me. You know, my family that I have, you know, my friends that I'm connected with. I know that I may not be able to go out and see or hang out with my friends as I normally do. Like that's a change, as well as I would go to different, you know, mixers or events or cultural events. That's a change because you can't go out anywhere like that. So just being able to, like I said, connect with those who are there, whether it's a FaceTime call, whether it is, you know, a sister friend who lives very right near me and already had been in contact, so it's safe enough, kind of like sticking with, if I'm going to see someone in person, someone that has already been around me, so it not anything that could increase my risk of anything. So that has been helpful, as well as even just checking in, you know, with family on a regular basis. Like my mom, staying in touch with her, doing a lot of video call with her, as well as even been able to tell my family too what I can do right now, what I can't do because of things that have changed and shifted. And then also being able to have that structure, as Meghan said. So I used to go to the gym twice a week, definitely once a week for sure. But sometimes I would, you know, try to go pretty regularly. And I have a water reservoir that I live near. And so just being able to go outside and walk outside around the water reservoir, run around. And I was even patient with myself because although, you know, I was running in the gym, on treadmill and been able to do those things. But, you know, when you go from the gym to you running outside, I didn't try to jump right in. I said, you know what? I'm going to honor where I am. I don't feel to run. I'm not going to try to run. I'm just going to walk. And it took me a few times before I even started running. And I'll incorporate a little running. And just coming back from walking and running near the house, and just sit outside. Just sit outside and be on the phone. Just having a change of scenery. Just driving and going get a Frosty, the little big things, you know, has been great. You know, things that we can do in a safe way, protecting myself when I do go out, you know, wearing masks, wearing gloves, things like that. But definitely looking at, you know, what I do have now, also relying on my faith to remember, you know, where I was when times was rough in the past, and believing that I will get through this. We all will get through this. And just really having a lot of empathy too for those who I know are in very different situations. That has really kept me too and humbled me to know, you know, I'm very grateful for what I do have, because unfortunately I know there are a lot of people in our society where things are really, really bad. There's always something that can be worse. So trying to keep my mindset in that mindset of gratitude and making sure I'm well enough. So when I do need to do something, and that's, I shared with you before, Katherine, that's why, you know, one of the things that helped me, I don't go to look for things to do. It comes to me. So even outside of work, things that I do, and if things are needed or help is needed, I let it come to me, including even with work, you know, not trying to overexert myself and send out a lot of different things. I let it just come naturally. And those are those things that has really helped ground me, opposed to just trying to do so many different things and be reactive. That doesn't work for me. So that has also helped me a lot with the self-care right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lamya. We have just a couple minutes left together, and I want to share just a few tools that you'll be able to download right below this video. But whether or not you are starting a self-care journey now, the pandemic is forcing you to. We've all had circumstances, like Lamya said, that sort of, we don't really usually engage in self-care, and we're like, okay, I'm feeling ready. Circumstances force us to break down, for me at least, when you say to yourself, like, okay, I really cannot avoid it anymore, right? I'm either going to acknowledge that I'm struggling and give myself that gift, or I'm going to pay the consequences for running. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can build self-care in. I think we've talked a lot about how it's not just an activity, it's really more of a shift of mindset. It's a lifestyle, it's the way we approach how we help and what we do, and it's our relationship with ourselves. The longest relationship we'll be in our lifetimes. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can do this depending on where you are in your journey. I'm just going to share my screen very briefly and show that this is an example of a self-care plan that's really sort of taking a couple of big domains and thinking about what ways during the week do we want to implement this. This is one of my colleagues. She gave us permission to share it. And thinking about, it's not just mind, but it's mind and body and spirit. And as Lamya and Meghan have talked so much about, it's also about our work, about how we're taking those breaks for ourselves, especially if we're a helping professional or if our work daily is taking care of humans who are constantly surround us. We also have an example of a self-care wheel. And so this really lays out some examples of what might be a part of each domain. So we've got physical, psychological, professional, emotional, spiritual, and personal, and not everything in each of those sections is going to work for everybody. But it's a nice tool to be able to look and get some ideas about what might be helpful. And then there's a blank one where you can start to fill in for yourself what works. The last thing I will share is that some people do best with checklists. And so the National Child Traumatic Stress Network has a great checklist of different ways that we can look in and ask ourselves, how am I feeling? And therefore, what do I need? And for me, a lot of self-care during the pandemic now, I have the grand privilege of being able to work from home. I know I'm very lucky in that, is really figuring out, okay, how do I allow myself to ask those questions on, an hourly basis or every couple of hours basis. And so what I ended up doing for myself was making a daily self-care plan. And I'm not ashamed of that. And so each morning and each lunch and then sort of the hours after work in the evening of just ideas of what I can do to take care of myself. I don't do all of them every day. I have to give myself grace because I am very imperfect at this. But like many of us, I have people in my personal life that I support. I have a brother with autism, and if you know people with autism, their structure is absolutely essential. And he has no structure right now because that structure has been taken away due to the pandemic. And so in wanting to build in structure for him, I call him every night at 8 o'clock and we play a Lego game that we invented together. And so that means the hours between 5 and 8, I really need to be intentional about how am I transitioning from my work day and into my evening so that it doesn't become 9:30 and I haven't booked up for air yet. And so that really became something that I only figured out after I failed for many days at it, and after I decided to be courageous and ask people for help and really allow them to support me in walking through what some of that might look like. So I am going to try to stop sharing my screen now, if I can. Let's see. Well, thank you so much for your patience with all of this. So Lamya, while I figure this out, in our last few minutes together, I would love if you could just talk a little bit about something that I know you're very passionate about, which is the idea that when we do not allow ourselves to take care of ourselves, what message is really underlying that?
Yeah, when we don't allow ourselves to take care of ourselves, it really is the unspoken message of we're not worthy of being cared for. And that is something that it really breaks my heart to know that, for us who are doing so much work for other people naturally in our profession, and maybe roll over into our personal, is to just know, that is a real like negative core belief that many of us may have. And that doesn't have to be the case, because it is okay for us to be able to look at ourselves and say, you know what, I deserve to be able to be cared for. That is being competent, that is having integrity, and that is upholding even that mission of empowering others, because we have to first be able to empower ourselves. And so, if anything that I said, I hope, that is something that just to know, be kind to yourself. And it is okay to be where you are and need that care, because that really is the message that we're sending across. And as the old, verbiage, you can't love someone else if you don't love yourself. You can't care for someone else if you're not caring for yourself. And so those are the things that if you, just be mindful that it's okay. Like, we should, that's our responsibility as human beings. So that's like, the main thing that I would say is a message that it sends.
Lamya. Meghan, any last words in our last minute? I know you're parenting in the moment as well.
I was just going to say, like, sometimes, that's like an adjustment. Again, we have to be really flexible right now, just with our expectations and how life's going to be, and be able, it can be really stressful to be really wanting to focus on one thing and all the other things are happening over here. So I've just been trying to just accept that's the new normal that I'm living with, and that's okay. And last night I sat in my bathroom for 30 minutes just by myself, because I figured nobody would find me there, because that's what I needed, so be creative, give yourself a lot of grace, know that like we have to take care of ourselves even more right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. We will see you next time. We'd love to hear from you. My contact information is on the screen. I'm sorry we can't be with you in person, but you are still part of our fabric of what we do and who we are. And to adapt the words of the wonderful Mr. Rogers, you are already more than enough exactly the way you are, and you are worth it. So thank you all. We look forward to hearing from you. Be gentle with yourselves.